of auditioning for the job, do they pair you with the actress that's going to be playing Alps, or several different?
No, I never. No,
so you didn't have to read with them. They just cast the two of you individually and said, "We know they're going to work well together."
Yeah, I think he just felt we would, and no, I had just gone in that one time, and then months later, he said, "It's you and Faith." So I said, "Well, that's fantastic,"
and it was.
Before Guys and Dolls, you had begun, you mentioned already, the relationship with Terrence McNally and his plays. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I make at least 5 different plays of his that you've been in.
Right.
And it's so unusual to see an actor in this day and age have the opportunity to continue in the work of a single playwright. How did that come about, and how did it evolve?
Well, I've often told this story, but I was doing another play at Manhattan Theatre Club. I've done a lot of plays at Manhattan Theatre Club. This one was called Claptrap, and it was a farce, and it was not going very well. And I remember at one point, Lynn Meadow had come in, and we were in the middle of this sort of note session and rehearsal, and she said she thought the lights were too bright, she said at one point, that the lights were too bright on stage. And I said, yes, that's the problem. They can see the play. So I said, you know what? I'm going out for some air. And so I went out to the lobby, and Terrence had a play on next door. They were starting Frankie and Johnny in the Claire de Lune. And he came up to me, and he said, hi, I'm Terrence McNally. And he said, I saw you in the show. And he had seen me in Present Laughter, and he just said, I'm a fan. And he was incredibly gracious and said, I hope we can work together someday. And I thought, how about now? And then they were casting the Lisbon Traviata, I had worked with John Tillinger I had done Robbie Bates's first play in New York, the Film Society, and he was the one who thought of me for Lisbon, even though it was supposed to be an older man, a man around the age I am now, and so everyone was, well, he's far too young, but they weren't happy with anyone they were seeing, and I went in, and it, literally that was I remember reading that play, and even though I knew nothing about opera, I just thought it was hilarious and brilliant and theatrical, and I thought, I get this guy. I got the character, but I also, Terrence's writing, there was just an instant affinity, and it was just, it was like it had been written for me. And so it was just one of those times I went in and read, and then they called that evening and said, we want you to do this. And it really, that's the play that truly changed my life in a way.
The later plays with McNally, did he start writing them for you?
No. The only play he ever truly wrote with me in mind was right after Lisbon Traviata. We did a play called Lips Together, Teeth Apart, and which was he had wanted to write a play. I mean, he was at a point in his life where it was a real turnaround for him. His relationship with John Tillinger, which began with It's Only a Play, which had been the reworking of what had originally been called Broadway, which had closed out of town and gotten terrible reviews, and he rewrote it. It became It's Only a Play and became a big success. And then they did the Lisbon Traviata together. And so he had lost people in his life like Jimmy Coco, and so I think I remember him saying to me, I like knowing I'm going to write for someone, or that there are certain actors, and he said, you've sort of come into my life at the right time, and it was very moving, and I was obviously it's incredibly flattering, but in that case, that's the only time he really did write a part for me. It was sort of loosely based on. He ran into one of my brothers at an opening, and I think he was. I don't know. There was something about him, and I remember him later saying, "I'm going to write a character that you're going to get in touch with your New Jersey roots." And it became this fella, this character in Lips Together, who ran a construction company, and a wonderful character, Sam Truman. So that one he did write for me. Love, Valor, Compassion, he actually didn't. I remember, that was sort of accidental. But again, it was, look, he writes great characters. So, but that was the only one.
So there were roughly half a dozen or so McNally plays you've been in, most of them at Manhattan Theater Club. Did you then have to audition for each of those?
No, darling.
No, okay. I'm thinking if the character wasn't written for you,
What do you have to do? No, at that point, no, I didn't have to audition for Terrence McNally. We had a relationship had been established. So.
Well, you've already mentioned the relationship with Jerry Zaks, who saw you early on, but finally began to cast you. And then he cast you a lot. We've mentioned Guys and Dolls, and following that, Laughter on the 23rd Floor.
Yes.
Playing, essentially, Sid Caesar. Were you playing Sid Caesar, or were you playing the character that Neil Simon wrote?
It was a character inspired by Sid, definitely. Again, it was another one of those times where we had done. I don't know where we are now in chronology, but we had done. I believe we had done. Did that come between? Yes, it came between Guys and Dolls and Forum. Yeah. We had Guys and Dolls. He came to me one day, Jerry, and said, Neil Simon has written this play, and I think it's hilarious. He said, I don't know if it's a play yet, but it certainly makes you laugh. And so he gave it to me, and he wanted me to play one of the comedy writers. It was actually the character that Louis Stadlin wound up playing. I said, great, I'll play anything. I'll just be thrilled to be a part of it, to originate something in a Neil Simon play. And then I was doing a movie, and he called me and said we were going to do a reading of the play, and he said, but just for the purposes of the reading, I'd like you to play the Sid Caesar character, because I just need someone you'll make it work, and somehow. And he said, we really want a big guy, 6'3", and 225, huge man to play it. But he said, just for the reading. So I said, oh, okay. And it posed an interesting challenge, just because the other character was an easier fit in a sense, because he was always joking, and he was sort of a very Borscht Belt kind of comic, and I understood that. But the character of Max Prince was this obviously tortured soul who was using a lot of prescription medication, a lot of drinking, and was kind of inarticulate, but also hilariously funny in his own way, and in a different way than a lot of the other characters who used language. And so we did this reading of it, and I don't know. I somehow got in touch with the Sid Caesar in my soul, and then at the end of it, they said, "Well, now we can't imagine anyone else doing it," and so I found myself now playing, the lead.
I've always been curious about that character, because Sid Caesar, in different ways, has been portrayed in so many fictional works. He's King Kaiser in My Favorite Year. He's Alan Brady in the old Dick Van Dyke Show. Yeah. I'm just wondering if Neil talked to you about what those experiences were, and whether any of that came into play in what you did in that show.
Well, he was, he was someone who was. Sid was angry. He was very angry, but it was partly what fueled the comedy, and it's partly what screwed him up in his personal life, and what drove him to, I think, drinking and taking pills. But what they loved about Sid was he was in the room every day with them. He was in the trenches working, and he would sort of sit in a big chair, and they would throw out ideas, and he would go, but he would signal if it was positive or negative. He would shoot. He would literally shoot, make sounds of a machine gun, and